Hello and welcome back to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We're going to take a look at some tips on how to make your sound work nicely, avoid problems later on in the mix, and just overall improve your technique and speed things up as well. It does help to shave off some time sound shaping and things, especially if you know what you're doing. You can get straight to that point rather than playing around and hearing what things are going to sound like. I will mention that you have to use and get experience using these things like compression and EQ and shaping sounds with these tools, but once you've got past that stage, you don't have to continue doing that. You don't have to experiment. You know the ballpark area where you need to be to get that sound that you are looking for. If you're looking to create something new, you're always going to go through that initial stage of trial and error. A good practice is always rolling those low ends off, especially in those instruments that do not require any low end whatsoever or have very minimal. It's going to be clogging your mix up slowly over time as all these things build up in that lower end. Headroom will start to be reduced and you'll start to get issues where all the headroom's gone. You're going to get digital clipping, you're going to get all sorts of nasties in there. And the thing that I always say is practice rolling off. And it's a great thing to do if you've got hi-hats, roll them off really high up to the point where you're not making them sound thin, but you are just getting rid of that low-end detail where there's no sound change whatsoever. As soon as you start hitting that threshold where the sound starts changing, that's where you need to just back off a little bit until you get to that sound. So I'll demonstrate that here with this synth. Let's just unsolo these. So we've just got our top lead. You can see I've already done some shaping and the low end's already rolled off. There's a little bit coming through still here. If we have a look, we can still see a lot coming through. So let's just see what we can do. Let's just start that again. You can hear that's where the sound starts to thin out a little bit. I'm just going to roll that back a little bit. If we go here, it starts to thin the sound out, it starts to lose its low end and its warmth in the track and starts to push it up towards the upper end of the mix, which we don't want. And there's a little bit of high pass filtering coming in slowly over that section as it filters in, but we just want to retain that width in the sound, that depth. We don't want to remove it. So the threshold is around there, in my opinion, for that type of mix. And you can hear that it starts to just clean it up a little bit. There's no sound change, but you know that you're removing some of those lower frequencies that are happening. And don't forget to always consider the slopes as well. So if you are looking for something that's a little bit harsher, we're going to choose something harsher, so it's nearly like a brick wall. In this case, we're just doing a 12 dB roll off, so we're keeping some of those low ends, but it's just gently rolling them off. So always practice doing that, and that will get you into better places. Compression does not need to be on every single track. It's a misunderstood concept as it is with compression, on over-compressing, under-compressing, not being able to hear what the compressor's doing. Again, this is all time and patience with learning and trial and error to understand how the compressor's working to tweak and make your sound. But compression, I've seen people on tracks just putting it on every single track all the way through the mix, and it's like a pinch of salt. You do not put salt on every single food you eat, ever. You might put it on your chips, but you're not going to put it on your ice cream. It's not the thing. Some of you might do, I'm not disputing that, but you do not put salt on your ice cream. You do not put salt on your chocolate bars. You do not put salt in everything, in your water, in your cups of coffee, things like that. That's the analogy that I always use, because you're just ruining the flavour of everything by putting salt on everything. It doesn't need it. And that's the same with compression. You do not need it on every track. You can see I've got a compressor here. This is actually on the leads bus. So this has come from this leads bus area. But if we actually go to the top lead here, we have Saturn for some saturation. We have Pro Q3 to control its EQ levels. And a little clipper on there, no compression. The next one, classic lead, has a little bit of compression on, only because it needs it. Then we move across to the phaser saw lead, which is like a bit of an arpeggio in the background. This one doesn't have any compression, it's just got some EQ and a little clipper on it. That is it. doesn't need compression on everything, just needs it in the places where you are trying to shape the sound. Especially if you're using it for sound design, then that's where it's going to appear in this early stages of the track. And the main reason we don't put compression on everything is because we don't want to lose the dynamic content of the track. If you put it on everything, you start to just really shave everything down and the track just starts to lose life and punch and depth because you're just removing it all by squashing it all with a compressor. While we're still on the topic of compression, if we go to our leads and open the compressor here, you can see everything is pretty gentle. The threshold is quite high there, but it's all still very gentle in terms of how the track's playing. So let's just have a quick listen to what's happening. I'm just going to bring everything else back in. Now if you listen to this without the compressor, you can hear that that lower end is now being boosted, so you can hear all the little details in the reverb and the delay. It's brought those levels up a little bit because that's what the compressor is it's aimed to do. It's to bring those lower levels up and shorten those higher peaks, and that's what your ratio's for. So we can see there we're using a 4:1 ratio, which means there is only 1 decibel of gain left for every 4 decibels of input. Please be aware that different compressors have different approaches to shaping those sounds, and that's why producers have their favourite compressors. I always use Pro C2 because it's an easy visual aid to show people, but it's not always the go-to compressor. Even though it does have multiple styles down here for different ways of approaching compression, sometimes there are other compressors that sound a little bit better for the job. Here is a duplicate of Pro C2, and what we're going to do is drop that attack so the compressor is starting to hit those transients straight away instead of waiting a little bit of time, which you can see here is 30.21 milliseconds. Now you can hear that we've lost that transient of that attack of the synth. Let's dial it back. You can hear it more. And that's the first part of the transparency that people talk about with compressors. You want something to be transparent, so it doesn't sound like it's been altered at all, it's just been controlled, but there's no actual audible sign. Now if we overcompress this, we can hear those attacks are trying to come through, but they're not quite coming through. We could dial the attack back and let that come through. But then the compressor's less effective for what we're trying to achieve, which is very subtle, but controlling compression. And my usual rule is I aim for somewhere around -6 of decibel reduction as a maximum. And finally, restriction. Restriction on plugins and sounds is detrimental to your development and understanding. Now what I mean by this is pick one synth, make a full track with that synth. Pick Silent 1, pick Serum, pick Avenger, whichever one you want, just pick one, make a full track using just that synth. If you can make a full track using that synth and you can get somewhere close to where you want, then you're on to a winner. If you have these restrictions, you can learn the ins and outs of these synths or a particular plugin inside out, and it's on the back of your hand. You know exactly how to use it without referring to manuals, to tutorials online. You already know it. And when it comes to another synth, you might have X, Y, and Z extra features on there. All you have to do is learn those few features, and away you go. That knowledge is already in your head and ready to go. There is nothing worse than going into your mixer, opening up your plugins, and seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of plugins everywhere from all different places, and you're just looking at them all. Which one do I use? Which one's better? I've seen Demis Hellen on YouTube says this one's better, but then I've seen on this other channel this one's better. Which one do I use? I've bought them both now, but you've bought them because of marketing, or you've seen your favourite artists, you need to understand how to use things before venturing forward. If you can make a full track, like I said, with just one synth and a handful of even just stock plugins, you're on your way. Then when you start to run into a few limitations because of those restrictions, you might go, oh, I need to have some compression types. I need something different. I might opt for FabFilter Pro C2 because it offers a bus compression, an opto compressor, a classic compressor, a digital compressor. There's all different things that it offers. That's beneficial to me. I'm going to buy it. Don't just go and buy it because everybody else has. Understand why first. I hope you found these tips useful. I know there was only 4 there, but these are some of the common mistakes that I see when I'm looking through people's tracks and giving them feedback or working with them on one-to-ones and things like that. It's just those few things where people are overloaded with things is the main problem. They're overloaded with plugins and they don't know which one to choose, how to use it. Restrict yourself, use the stock plugins to start with, then expand out of that. And that brings us to the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Please hit the bell icon and subscribe. That'll make sure you see all the videos, and that's where it all helps this channel to keep moving forward, to keep doing this as my day-to-day job and keep you guys informed of the latest things that are happening out there. Finally, hit the like button and drop me a comment. I do get back to everybody. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.